All right, so here you have it, your final weekly announcement. And I'm sending it out early because next week is kind of funky. And I want you to have a heads up about what you're contending with as you finish this course so that you can prioritize the things you have going on in your life appropriately to successfully finish up this course. All right, so what's one of the funky things about next week? Well, one of the funky things is our course ends on Thursday, July 17th at 11:59 p.m. So up to this point, we've been working through the entire week, wrapping things up on Sundays, but next week is different. The final week of our course is going to bring us to a conclusion at 11:59 p.m. on July 17th, which means you have to have all of your work wrapped up and submitted to Canvas by that time. If you miss that deadline, Canvas won't allow you to submit any more work. All right, so what is the work that you have to make sure you complete by Thursday, July 17th at 11:59 p.m.? One of those things is thought primer number 14. Thought primer number 14 is a really brief thought primer focused exclusively on philosophic inquiry number 2. And what it's asking you to do is to download a copy of that philosophic inquiry number 2 prompt, which you can do by clicking this link right here. Taking a look at that assignment, which you'll see is structured very similarly to philosophic inquiry number 1, and then offering to me in thought primer number 14 any questions or concerns or advice that you want about completing philosophic inquiry number 2. Now, another funky thing. This thought primer number 14, is due on Tuesday, July 15th by 11:59 p.m. So I know we've been submitting thought primers on Thursdays and Sundays, but because you need to complete all your work by Thursday, July 17th at 11:59 p.m., and thought primer number 14 asks you questions about that work that you need to complete by Thursday at July 17th at 11:59 p.m., I need to get those questions you have about philosophic inquiry number 2 in enough time to be able to respond to your questions or concerns before your philosophic inquiry number 2 assignment is due, Thursday, July 17th at 11:59 p.m. All right, so thought primer number 14 is due on Tuesday, July 15th. You want to get that in. Shouldn't take you too terribly long to complete. One thing that's important to keep in mind is you're going to submit your questions or concerns related to philosophic inquiry number 2 via the thought primer number 14 assignment page. That's how you get credit for thought primer number 14, by submitting your questions about philosophic inquiry number 2. You're going to submit your philosophic inquiry number 2 responses, though, via the philosophic inquiry number 2 assignment page, which you can access here on your assignments page, or you could access right here at the bottom of thought primer number 14. There's a link to it there as well. And it's important that you not submit philosophic inquiry number 2 to the thought primer number 14 page, because the rubric for philosophic inquiry number 2 isn't in thought primer number 14. And therefore I wouldn't be able to award you points for all of your brilliant responses. So again, you're going to see that philosophic inquiry number 2 is structured very similarly, if not identically, to philosophic inquiry number 1. It's just the content is different. And my advice to you as you're contending with the various prompts in philosophic inquiry number 2 is to really make sure that you're staying focused on the prompts, that you're providing very direct, detailed responses to the questions you're being asked, the terms that you're being asked to define. And it's inevitable that your responses are going to involve abstractions, because we're dealing with lots of really lofty abstract ideas. And an effective strategy for dealing with these kinds of lofty ideas is to detail them out in lots of good detail and explain exactly what it is that you're thinking, and then take all of those really lofty abstract ideas and bring them down to the earth by giving us some concrete examples that illustrate those abstract ideas. That's a super effective strategy for contending with the kinds of ideas that we're contending with in our course. Provide examples that illustrate or exemplify the ideas that you're explaining. It kind of shows them in action. Don't do something stupid like just copy and paste out of Grok or ChatGPT. You have ways of knowing when you do that. One of those ways is you'll get 2 people submitting the exact same response to a prompt. So don't even go down that road. And why would you want to anyway? You should find some interest in the opportunity to clarify for yourself what you think about some of these important philosophic ideas. So, and I want to know what you think. So tell me what you think and why you think what you do, and exemplify those ideas by providing us with some examples. I strongly encourage you in your responses to quote from the lectures, our course lectures, to quote from the course material we've been reading. It's a really effective way of showing that you're informed about these issues and that you're not just making this stuff up out of thin air, that you've actually studied these things, you've read about them, you've thought about them, you've listened to people talk about them. All right? So Thursday, 11:59 p.m., July 17th, that's when it all ends. So you want to make sure that you get your work done before then and submit it to Canvas. If anything comes up I can help with, or you have questions or concerns, as always, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I always like when folks do that because it lets me get a sense of where you're at and what it is that you're contending with. If you find your interest in ethics kind of peaked a little bit by this second to the last week of our course, then maybe you'll enroll in Philosophy 20 with me in the fall. Introduction to Ethics. It's a super interesting course. We spend the entire semester going in depth into some of the ideas that you've just kind of glanced at in the second to the last week of our course. Of course, you should also plan to take Philosophy 12, Introduction to Logic, with me. That's a super fun class. If you're the type that likes to solve puzzles, do things like Sudokus and stuff like that, Philosophy 12, Introduction to Logic is a super fun class. All right. So as always, reach out to me with any questions you have, anything I can help with.